Hello everyone and welcome to round 9 of the American Monoposto Championship. My name is Simon and this might be the strangest video of the entire season, not just because we're racing on a fictional circuit, but because of everything that has happened ever since the controversial race at Daytona, because there are quite a few things we need to talk about before we can get started with the 9th round of the AMC 2022. The race at Daytona was expected to be a bit of a mess, considering that usually Monoposto cars don't really race around the Daytona Oval, but racing-wise, the race went quite well actually. You might argue that when it comes to the pure wheel-to-wheel racing, it was one of the most entertaining and fun races of the entire season, but that's not what the race is going to be remembered for. Seeing that after the race, multiple drivers received hefty time penalties for pit lane infringements, which partially led to the entire DMS Falcon squad leaving the AMC 2022. The feedback towards the stewards was incredibly negative. Some drivers had been unhappy not only with the decision to penalize drivers that way, but also with the way it was communicated, the way it was implemented, and also with some other seeming inconsistencies throughout the year. But while that was controversial, the championship fight between Alexander Knežević and Kevin Peters still looked like it was gonna go down to the wire. But then Kevin Peters decided to quit the American Monoposto Championship 2022. Seemingly, the former leader of the American Monoposto Championship and the #1 driver at MPM is not a big fan of fictional tracks such as the San Francisco track, and therefore will not compete in the San Francisco race, essentially handing the championship to either Alexander Knežević or Jan Winter, depending on how the race plays out. Of course, some drivers and people within the AMC were confused as to why Peters made that decision now, considering that San Francisco had been part of the calendar from day one, but I digress. This essentially means that the fight for the 2022 American Monoposto Championship has not ended with a bang, but with a whimper. It's also important to point out that Josh Kazar is no longer the race director of the American Monoposto Championship, which means that Simon Core is once again the race director for the remaining 2 AMC races. It certainly didn't help the mood that only 11 drivers turned up for the 9th round of the championship, including Alexander Knežević, Jan Winter, and people you usually wouldn't see on a street circuit such as Adrian Friedrich. Considering the big pace gap between some of the drivers, the results in qualifying weren't particularly surprising, but irrespective of what happened before the race, during qualifying, or even with the now non-existent championship fight, there's still a race to watch. So then, Knežević, Winter, Heyman, Smith, Curtis, the top 5. It's a matter of survival, essentially, around the street circuit. It's probably one of the most dangerous circuits on the entire calendar, and people weren't really happy with the choice that was made, considering that there were other more conventional street circuits available for the American Monoposto Championship. But once again, I digress. Knežević on pole position, behind him, Jan Winter. The green flag is about to drop around San Francisco. And here we go, 1 hour plus 1 lap. Winter still in second, Heyman in third, Smith in fourth, Curtis in fifth, Corpetta trying to overtake Curtis into T1. Look at Kyron Valdring in the background, 2 of the originally 4 MPM drivers, but Knežević still in the lead. Behind him, Winter, Smith versus Heyman. Corpetta around the outside of Curtis, Valdinger, Kyer. Everybody seemingly filing through quite well. The back of the field, Oboyski, Friedrich, and Gwendolyn Cole. Again, incredibly difficult circuit, especially the curbs, seemingly what caused drivers the most amount of issues throughout the week. Knežević still in the lead, ahead of Winter, Heyman, and Corpetta. And it only took a few minutes until we see the first crash. It was Mark Kyer who overshot the corner a little bit, bumped over the curb, which you were allowed to do on some corners during the race, but not all of them. Mark Kyer losing his front wing, but he's able to continue for now. No safety car necessary. We expect this to be one of the more chaotic races this season. As you can see, Benz Waldinger already has to retire, which caused the first safety car of the day. The safety car had to be deployed for Benz Waldinger because of this crash. Race over for the MPM team boss, but he is still going to get one championship point considering that he was one of only 11 drivers who would compete in this race. Only half points for people who do not complete 75% of the race distance. After this bizarre incident with Friedrich and Gwendolyn Cole, both were told to retire, so we've got 8 drivers left in this chaotic melee of a championship race. Restart in San Francisco. Knežević still in the lead. Behind him, Winter. Smith in third. Heyman in fourth. Behind them, Corpetta. Smith now in second ahead of Jan Winter. Behind them, Heyman, Corpetta. Curtis still in Oboiski. Corpetta fighting with Heyman. Good performance from Corpetta so far. He was great in qualifying, but sadly he had a 3-place grip penalty because of his interesting incident in Laguna Seca, let's say. Him flying over the pit entry. Still defending against Heyman. Ahead of him, Winter and Smith in the fight. Heyman overtaking Corpetta once again. There's a bit of a collision there. Everybody's still able to continue. Mark Heyer says, thank you very much. But he's not able to utilize his position. Another crash, another safety car, the second one of this race. And Mark Heyer obviously has to retire. Certainly frustrating for Kyer after he thought he'd finished on the podium in Daytona. He was one of the drivers who received a large time penalty. So certainly a few frustrating races for Kyer, despite the fact that there's seemingly some potential within him to do better than some other drivers around here. Heyman went into the pits during the safety car phase, possibly to repair some damage after the collision. Knežević still ahead of Smith, Winter in third, Oboiski in fourth. He might have another shot at a podium today. Corpetta in fifth, Curtis in sixth, Heyman in seventh. The green flag drops once again. Smith still behind Knežević, behind them Winter, and look at Smith! Smith now in the lead, ahead of Knežević, Winter. Look at Corpetta in fourth, ahead of Oboiski, Heyman, and Curtis. Only 7 drivers left, but this might still be a spicy championship round. Look at Oboiski defending against Heyman. Behind him, Aaron Curtis for Turismo Autosport. And this might actually be Aaron Smith's best chance so far at actually winning a race, considering that he originally intended to play the team game for Kevin Peters in his championship fight, but seeing as that's no longer a factor, this might be his best chance so far to win a race in the American Monoposto Championship if he can keep it up. Curtis now getting ahead of Matthew Oboiski. Seemingly some damage on Curtis' car. Smith still ahead of Knežević, Jan Winter in third, Bartosz Corpetta in fourth. Again, this could be his greatest results so far if he can keep it on track, because pace-wise, seemingly, he's in a pretty good position right now. We heard some rumors and mumblings that Gonzalez Cativo has somewhat taken Bartosz Corpetta under his wing, and maybe the experience of Cativo, despite the fact that he's not here today, might be paying off for the man with the number 16. Lap 13, and Aaron Smith has already lost his front wing. I can't believe it! Aaron Smith had a great chance of winning the race today, but he might have already chucked it away, losing his front wing, making a mistake, having the pit. Aaron Smith dropping way back, and now Knežević is in the lead once again. Winter second, Bartosz Corpetta in third, Max Heyman in fourth, Matthew Oboiski in fifth, Aaron Curtis in sixth. And wouldn't that be a story if Bartosz Corpetta was actually able to finish on the podium? Now, yes, of course, we do not have as many drivers as we've had on other races throughout the year, but still it would be quite an impressive achievement to be on pace and as consistent as people like Jan Winter, Alexander Knežević, and Max Heyman, considering how well they've performed throughout the year. So he'll try his best to keep up with them and also keep it on track. Well, I think I might have praised him too early. He slightly grazes the wall, probably damage to his suspension, and therefore, it doesn't look as if Bartosz Corpetta is going to finish on the podium today. Certainly disappointing for the man with the number 16, but that's probably just part of the game at this point. Oboiski and Curtis now ahead of Corpetta. And there's a slight collision between Curtis and Oboiski. To our knowledge, there will be no penalty for either one of them, while Bartosz Corpetta is trying his damnedest to return to the track. But this is certainly becoming one of the strangest races in the young history of the American Monoposto Championship. At the front, there isn't really that much to report. Knežević still in first, Winter in second, Heyman in third. He already went into the pits because of the damage that he probably received during the collision earlier. Curtis in fourth, Smith in fifth, Matthew Boyski in sixth, Bartosz Krpeta in seventh. He has also decided to retire. So both Winter and Knežević went into the pits on lap 24. Curtis still in fourth, Max Heyman now in the lead. And again, the question is, does he maybe have a bit of a strategic advantage considering that he went into the pits earlier, or is it not really going to play part in his race? Is he in a position where he can fight for race victory against Jan Winter and Alexander Knežević, or is he in a position where he can't really fight against them considering their respective strategies? Lap 29, Heyman into the pits, Knežević ahead of him now, as well as Jan Winter. An 8-second gap between himself and Jan Winter. And again, the question is, can he make up that gap? About 25 minutes to go for all drivers involved. Aaron Smith up to fifth. He'll probably be pretty pissed with himself, or maybe at the track as well, considering that some drivers weren't particularly happy with the choice that was made for the 9th round of the American Monoposto Championship. But I might have repeated myself there once again. I digress. 20 minutes to go, and Matthew Boyski chucks his car into the wall, loses a front wheel, and therefore the third safety car of the day was deployed. Knežević went to the pits for a second time, as well as Winter and Max Heyman. And Aaron Smith might be in a pretty good position right now, considering that he's back right behind them, and so he might actually be fighting for race victory once again. Curtis still behind them in P5. Only 5 drivers remaining in this chaotic melee. Though we do expect more drivers to show up for the final round of the American Monoposto Championship 2022. Restart once again. Knežević ahead of Winter, Heyman, Smith in fourth, Curtis in fifth. 5 drivers left. About 12 minutes to go in this bizarre festival of a race. Aaron Smith already in third, ahead of Max Heyman. Curtis not really in a position seemingly to keep up with the front 4. Maybe too much damage on their car. Winter still in second, Smith in third, Heyman in fourth, and it looks as if the top 4 might be fighting for the podium positions, but it doesn't really look as if anybody can touch either Alexander Knežević or Jan Winter today. And it looks as if Jan Winter might be blocking Aaron Smith and Max Heyman at this point, considering there is an increasing gap between himself and Alexander Knežević at the front. Now again, it looks as if Alexander Knežević has this championship sealed, but you never know. You can never be sure. Therefore, he's probably got to try his best to win the 9th round of the championship and not risk anything, despite the fact that there isn't really that much to risk, it seems. Gap increasing between Winter and Knežević once again. You can see Max Heyman is becoming more and more frustrated with Aaron Smith trying his damnedest to get ahead of the MPM driver, who's known for being somewhat aggressive in his maneuvers. His maneuvers have already been discussed multiple times within the American Monoposto Championship or within the ORSL, the league hosting the American Monoposto Championship. But it doesn't really look as if Max Heyman is in a position to overtake Aaron Smith right now. Incredibly difficult around the street circuit, and Aaron Smith timed his overtake to perfection. But then again, I wonder if he could have won the race if, after his well-timed overtake of Alexander Knežević, he hadn't lost his front wing. Smith now dropping back loads compared to Jan Winter and Alexander Knežević. Winter is caught back up with Knežević about 3 minutes to go in this race. Heyman still close behind, trying to overtake around the final turn. Doesn't work. Final chicane. Heyman still behind Smith. He might want to try his shot in T1. But he doesn't do it, almost outbrakes himself, almost collides with Aaron Smith. Again, you can see him growing more and more frustrated, and understandably so. He's not been in a position to win a single race, or he's not won a single race in the American Monoposto Championship this year. He thought he had won his first ever online sim race in Daytona, but he lost that victory because of the time penalty that was handed out, or because of the time penalties that were handed out. And he was one of the drivers that received a time penalty because of pit lane infringements. And now he's trying his best to actually finish on the podium in San Francisco. And with a minute to go, Max Heyman goes all or nothing, puts it into the wall. Final safety car of the race deployed, and the race will not be restarted. Alexander Knežević wins the 9th round of the American Monoposto Championship ahead of his teammate Jan Winter. Odilo won 2. Aaron Smith finishes in 3rd, and Aaron Curtis will finish in 4th. Max Heyman will still receive full points in 5th since he completed 75% of the race distance. But it looks as if Alexander Knežević will become the American Monoposto Champion 2022. It's not official yet, considering that Kevin Peters could, in theory, still return to the American Monoposto Championship. But let's have a quick look at the standings to show you what I'm talking about. So then, the results for San Francisco. Only 4 people finished the race. Knežević, Winter, Smith, and Curtis. Again, Heyman in 5th does get the full 10 points. Every other driver will only get half points. But let's look at the championship standings and see what I was trying to explain earlier, which is that since there is a maximum of 21 points that a driver can get throughout a weekend, Kevin Peters could theoretically still win the American Monoposto Championship 2022 if, against our predictions, he decides to return for the final round in Fontana. Mathematically, Jan Winter is no longer a contender for this year's American Monoposto Championship, but he's secure in 3rd place. Also, if my maths don't fail me, Odilo has already won the Teams Championship in the AMC 2022. So congratulations to the Odilo Racing team ahead of MPM and Costech. Streamline still in 4th. And of course, after this bizarre race, we don't know how everything's going to unfold in 2 weeks in Fontana for the season finale of our first ever season. Is Kevin Peters going to make a spontaneous comeback? Is Alexander Knežević going to win his first championship in online sim racing? And is there going to be another big surprise for the final round of the championship? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out, which is to watch the next video. Until then, thank you for watching and keep racing.
I'm just telling you to fight for your dreams, but it's not what it seems.